no easy way to go into this news story, but some negative news, and the Hasbro Wizards of the Coast world. Hasbro laid off 1,100 employees, including WotC employees. There was some speculation in the beginning that because Wizards of the Coast is like one of their only profitable brands within the company, that they probably weren't laying people off there. But we've recently found out, that even them, which, man, I just don't know. I don't know. I've got an article here. I can start reading some of the article just to kind of start the conversation, but
yeah, well, I don't know if it was one of those that I was reading, but I was reading one of the articles that was talking about the Wizards of the Coast and, the D&D side.
Yeah.
And they were saying like some of the jobs that were lost were like creative development jobs, like people that are in charge of lead designs and stuff like that. It's like, that's the people that are
some of the
actually designing the stuff that makes you money. Like, it didn't make much sense.
It makes no sense. Some of the people laid off from the Dungeons and Dragons side of things were like designers that have been with the company for like 10, 11 years, and they've designed like books that we've purchased. There's some on my wall behind me, like lead adventure pack and game, like lead designers, like big people in the design department. And it's just, I don't understand. I don't, that's basically my takeaway from this whole situation is I just don't understand like how this is a good decision. Like where in their quote unquote trimming the fat, like at what point do they say, well, if we trim this fat, we're possibly ruining, our profits for future years and for future products. Like we're actively making the company worse so that we can make some statement about this year end. And it's beyond, it's just, I don't understand this like inhuman vampire corporate like speak. Like it makes zero sense to me. So
some of the thing, like, so they had released 800 people at the beginning of the year.
Prior
to this
in January.
And then it said that that was supposed to save them $300 million annually by 2025, and that their new focus was focus on fewer, larger brands, digital development, and invest hard on direct-to-consumer and licensed deals.
Yeah.
But I mean, that, to me, and then he says he also championed Wizards of the Coast Gaming as their continued breadwinner.
Yeah.
And then, like, literally, then you get rid of those people that you're trumpeting their success. Like,
yeah. So first off, let's try to discuss, why do you think Hasbro is doing poorly? They are doing really poorly. So their stock is nosedived 21% over the past year. And I even saw an article where like other companies' stocks are doing well. Theirs are still like doing poorly in certain areas. I don't understand stock. I don't know. But like it seems like they're doing terribly, right? Why do you think that? Why do you think that is? Granted, not WotC. WotC is the shining star of Hasbro, but Hasbro, the toy manufacturer, the board game manufacturer, owner of WotC, Wizards of the Coast, Magic the Gathering, and Dungeons and Dragons. Why do you think they're doing poorly? I have a theory, but I'm giving you a chance to go first.
I'd like to see when the drastic fall really started, because to be honest with you, I feel like the whole license thing, open license, hurt them more than they would probably care to admit.
I think you're right about that, but I will say that I don't know whenever the fall started, but I know that at that time, I know that because the only reason why I know about this is because at that time I was involved in that drama, and at that time people were saying WotC's doing terrible, or not WotC, Hasbro's doing terrible. WotC is their only shining star. Like that was the narrative even back then. So I think they've been doing poorly. I think since around the time of the pandemic. I know that Hasbro, whenever they released their letter for why they're doing this, they put a lot of blame on the downturn after the pandemic and that they didn't recover, as fast as other companies. But while that's probably true, my suspicion is it was probably going on before that,
Oh, definitely. And when you think of like so somebody who doesn't know or play D&D or anything like that, when you think Hasbro, you're thinking like toys. And I know they were involved in some cartoons, back in the day too.
Yeah.
And the one company that's mentioned here is Mattel, and
Yeah.
like I mean they got a big push with
the
the
Barbie
Barbie movie,
Yeah.
but like when you think kids toys, Mattel is still like that company that you think of, and Hasbro, like I don't really think of them anymore when I think of Hasbro toys, I think of the 70s and 80s and like it's almost like a company that doesn't exist anymore. And if you didn't play D&D or something, you wouldn't even realize Hasbro was around. Like if you go to like back when Toys R Us was still around, and I'm sure that didn't help either with Toys R Us closing.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But like even going into Toys R Us, I don't ever remember seeing like a Hasbro toy section. It was, you'd see your Mattel and all these other things, but you never saw that. And like I don't know, maybe it's just their particular things that they own aren't popular right now with people like it used to be. Like
yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I think that what it reminds me of is the comic book industry, because right now the comic book industry is going through a similar situation where it's like they're only doing well whenever they basically appeal to the whales, whenever they put out like 100 variant covers, and like whenever they appeal to the collectors, the people that they know are going to buy no matter what, and then they just try to get as much money out of those people as they can. But there was a time where the comic book industry, it was made and came from kids reading comics. And Hasbro used to sell toys to kids. Now they sell toys to adults. And I just think that is, I think that, really this company is kind of a victim to that change. I mean, I can tell you my kid has, I don't even know if he's got Hasbro toys, but he has hardly any action figures. Like action figures that I played with when I was a kid, G.I. Joe. My kid has Ninja Turtles. I had Ninja Turtles as a kid. Star Wars action figures. My kid does not care about a single Star Wars action figure. It is just not, and I give him comics. I wish he liked comics. He does not want to, it does not, how does a comic book compete with a 6-year-old's attention? How does it compete with an iPad? You know what I mean? Like there's no comparison.
There isn't.
And he watches so much kids YouTube that like whenever he plays with toys, he doesn't play with action figures. He plays with like stuffed animals or he does have some action figures that are like the little, like not pop vinyls, but they're like little kid like action figures. And maybe this will change as he gets older. Legos, he loves some Legos. Legos all day long, and I think kids still love Legos. But I just don't think kids are going out and buying like action figures and toys like that anymore. And a company like Hasbro, they're trying to get as much money as they can from the whales, from the grown collectors that are our age, that it's going to go to the store and they're going to buy, every member of the Avengers because they want to have that complete, set. And then they're watching YouTube and waiting on the next announcement of the next Hasbro toy package to come out. And that industry has just shifted that way. And I think that there's no amount of, there's no amount of, they just can't make that money back. Like, I just don't think the days of kids buying things off I mean, if that were true, then Toys R Us would still be around. Like it's just, the toy industry is just not the same as it was in Hasbro's heyday, and it never will be again. And so while I think they are trying to shift they're trying to shift their business model to something more modern, I just don't think that this particular move was a very good one.
So like I was looking at the Hasbro like website.
Yeah.
And they list like, I guess it's brands that they own that you can go and shop under their brands. So like, obviously Dungeons and Dragons, but like they've got like Beyblade, like
that's right.
That's very like unique. Like it's not a big popular thing, but like Fortnite maybe. G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
Which again, G.I. Joe's not what it used to be for kids. Like everyone had G.I. Joe when we were kids. Like and now it's not.
We actually did get my kid something G.I. Joe recently for Christmas, and we've already given it to him. He has the flu right now, so we said he could open one of his Christmas gifts early, and it was that one. And he wanted it because he saw it in the store and he bought it. And I think he's played with it once since he opened it. He's not even no longer interested in it. And he's not. And when we go to the store, he's not going to want another one. Like it's not like you know what kids want? These stupid, and maybe this is what Hasbro needs to get into. Maybe they're already doing this. I don't know. But my son will buy any of those like dumb little eggs that you don't know what's inside of it. And you buy it and open it and there's stuff inside of it. He loves those things. Like, anything. And you know why? It's because he watches other kids open them on YouTube. And that's why he wants those things, the little Minecraft boxes that you don't know what's inside the box.
So they also own Star Wars, which I don't know. But so again, what you were talking about earlier like if you go to Target now and you go to the toy section and you go to the Star Wars section, they have plenty of action figures.
Yep.
But if you know the Star Wars thing, like they're all the Black Series, like that are not you buy to open and play with.
Right, exactly.
Those are all collector. Like the Black Series are like $20 to $50 figures somewhere in that, depending on size and different things like that. So like, whereas when I was a kid in Star Wars, like you bought everything and ripped the packaging open, and you were making like you know all these grand battles with all these dudes and like So like I mean like, and they got Transformers, which Transformers isn't big like it used to be. Like
all this stuff is for adults. All this stuff is for adults. They're selling.
The one thing that they have is Nerf.
Oh, okay. Now my son doesn't play with Nerf. He does play with Nerf.
Yeah, that's probably their money maker. Nerf and Monopoly. But I mean, again, like people don't play Monopoly like they used to. Like
no. The only people there's like Monopoly collectors out there. They're just like And even that is like, that was a bigger thing 10 years ago than it is now. I haven't heard anybody talk about the new Monopoly set. I remember that was a big thing when I first started learning about selling things on eBay. That was the big thing, is like you go to the next town over, Walmart, and you buy all their Monopolies, and then you sell them on eBay for like $20 more because they would sell. People would buy them because their town is out of it at their Walmart. That's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like that's literally like their cornerstone for Hasbro is Nerf, probably.
So anyway, my point to all this is, I don't know. I wish WotC were a different company. I wish WotC were not owned by Hasbro, because Hasbro is sinking. It's going under. The only thing they have is WotC and maybe Nerf, and like it's just, even the other stuff we talked about, the toy collectibles that toy collectors are out buying, that stuff's just not popular enough, I think, to sustain this business. And somebody needs to buy WotC. WotC needs to be separated from Hasbro. There was I saw an article where there was some talk about this in the past, I think last year, and Hasbro, for obvious reasons, was like completely against the idea. They like shut the whole thing down. Like, no way, we're never getting rid of WotC. Is there any sort of like corporate mechanism where like they could enough shareholders that are in support of WotC but not the rest of Hasbro could strip it away somehow and make it its own company? Because that would be successful. That there's a great video by, it's the same. I'll link it in the show notes, but I don't know the name to call it out on the show. But there's a great video that's comparing Warhammer's 2023 to Hasbro's 2023, or even WotC's 2023, and it is just like a bizarro world comparison, like just night and day. And I'm not a Warhammer fan. The only Warhammer I've ever bought, I'd never painted and I never did anything with. But the just Warhammer, their fans seem to appreciate them. They make decisions that seems like they have a good understanding of, how to make money while offering their fans something that they'll love. Like, it's just the comparison between these two like companies. D&D, one person buys the book and then 5 people sit at a table and play the game. Like, how is that sustainable? Like, how is it's a, I don't know. They have to find creative ways to, to open the market up to more people to buy their products. If they sold, card games have like solo versions of their game now. So you can buy a card game that you can play competitively, or you can purchase some special rules or download special rules online where you can play it solo. What if Wizards of the Coast branched out into solo RPGs? Solo RPGs are a thing that exists. They firing 1,100 people doesn't seem like the right way to make this company profitable.
No.
Especially of the people that it seems like they fired. It seems like the worst people. Meanwhile, Chris Cox received $9.4 million in total compensation last year, and that's a salary of $1.5 million. So he made $1.5 million just for working there, and then the additional $8 million is because I guess the company did so well. I mean, damn, how much money would it have made if they had been profitable, if they had been, if they had better stock returns? Like, would he have made $20 million? Like, is this
right? Exactly.
It's insane to me. It's insane to me to think that this dude can get $9.4 million while firing 1,100 people, while firing 2,000 people at a company that has 6,000 employees. Like that is insane. And there's a quote going around from Nintendo, because this happened once with Nintendo, where they were trying to make up some losses to improve their shareholder respect, representation, or whatever. And they didn't take any bonuses, and they made cuts to their salaries to avoid letting people go. And I know the company I work for did a similar thing during COVID. Not exactly, but they did, they made corporate cuts to pays and to benefit packages and stuff like that, so that they wouldn't have to let people go. And it's just, it just seems completely tone deaf that in the same year that the D&D fan base was so up in arms over the OGL, and the same year they laid off 800 people earlier in the year.
Yes.
That they didn't take any cuts. He don't worry, he got his while he let 1,100 people go before Christmas. I mean, it's insane. It's insane to me. I literally don't understand it. And while I don't want D&D to go under, because I think it's important for tabletop role-playing gaming. I mean, if you don't have D&D, what do you have?
Right.
There's a ton of games out there, but they're all floating on the idea that everybody's introduced by D&D. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, like, one of the corporate speak things I saw too was, that the labor cutting was like the last desperate, measure. And everyone knows, like, if you've worked in retail whatsoever, labor is the easiest thing to control as far as expenses. And so if you need to make your bottom line look better, the easiest way to do that is to cut costs and to cut labor. And that is also disingenuous, because, like, I guarantee you they were like, like in a meeting, hey, the bottom line is not looking good. Guys, what do we do? I don't know. We're not making any more money, so we got to cut money. And, hey, let's just cut some more people. What can we cut?
Yeah.
And to make it sound like they did everything in their power, and that was like the last ditch effort, is just, that's ridiculous, because anybody that knows anything knows that that's not true.
It makes me not want to play Dungeons and Dragons anymore. But then on the other hand, that seems like it's punishing the wrong people, because if I have an opinion section of the show notes here, and this is obviously my opinion, but I think that I think that Hasbro or Chris Cox or whoever, I think they're trying to get purchased. I think they want Hasbro to get purchased by someone. I think they want to get paid out of this system.
Yes,
because
somebody. I mean, it makes no sense for because that's what happens with companies. They start doing poorly, and then somebody sweeps in and buys a majority of their stock, and the next thing you know, they're taking over. And I can't imagine with that lineup, with D&D as popular as it is, and again, some of those other things that we named like Nerf and Monopoly and Play-Doh. Apparently, they own Play-Doh.
My kid does. My kid does have Play-Doh, actually.
Exactly. So, I mean, they've got to do something, and I can't imagine another investor out there saying, wow, we feel like we can do something with this. I mean, to me, it sounds like they're being mismanaged.
They're being so mismanaged,
and they need someone to come in that could do it. Even if they sold off, like you said, they could sell off Wizards of the Coast, or they could sell off Nerf for a crap ton of money. Like if they needed money that bad,
just license thing like Dungeons and Dragons licensing to Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know how much money that brought in, but it was like the most popular game and the most well-received and well-loved game of the year of a very long time. I've seen a lot of people talk about how great it was, that it was a game that wasn't trying to constantly sell you loot boxes, that it was just a good game. And that's all it was. You bought it once and you had this good game for life. And Hasbro probably didn't invest anything in that. It was made by completely different people. They had nothing to do with it other than licensing D&D to this other company to make this game. Which, by the way, they just made a Warhammer game. They don't need Hasbro. They wanted Dungeons and Dragons. And it's just, it's insane. It's just, it is mismanaged is 100% the right word.
And with Baldur's Gate, like, not only is it a great game and won Game of the Year this year, and not only did it win Game of the Year, but it won Game of the Year against some big games that came out this year.
Yeah.
Like this whole last few months have been huge for the gaming world. And so that should tell Hasbro all they need to know about the profitability of D&D. And it just seems like you would cut from other places and then reinvest that money into your Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, I misspoke. Owlcat Games is making the Warcraft game, which also they make great Pathfinder games. But whatever. Sorry.
Right. But yeah, I mean, like, that's what, like, I mean, sorry, Transformers isn't cutting it. Let's cut from their team, take that money, put it into Wizards of the Coast, and hire more people instead of firing them.
Yeah.
And, do something because, I mean, literally that's just sitting there, and it is profitable for them, but it could be, I guarantee it could be so much more profitable.
Here's what my guess is. I'm just straight off of just my speculation. Star Wars is probably a very expensive licensing to have.
Oh, I'm sure.
The Transformers, G.I. Joe, all the other stuff you mentioned that they have licensing for, they probably spent so much money on that they don't want to cut anybody in those departments because of their, the lost cost fallacy. They feel like, oh, we paid so much for that.
Yeah.
We want to keep people on those products and we need to put more of a focus. That's eventually going to work out one day because we invested so much in it. Whereas D&D is probably like whatever cost they had into buying Wizards of the Coast or whatever, that's all been done. And like, now Wizards of the Coast is their breadwinner, but they don't really have this sunk cost fallacy tied into it. And so maybe that's why they thought that was a good, but it's terrible anyway. It's terrible anyway, because I don't even know even if all those 1,100 people had been if they were all Play-Doh people, which that would be absurd. But like, it's so terrible anyway to just let all these people go without warning, like this close to Christmas, while making so much money in bonuses and total compensation.
Right.
And I know that like Chris Cox is one dude, and he's the face of this whole thing. It's not just him. There's other corporate greedy fat cats in this company too, as there is, I'm sure, with every company. But it's disgusting. And I've never seen a company like Blizzard, WotC. Like, I've never seen a company that went from being a like private, passionate company to being a publicly traded company, and it turned out well for the initial IP. Like, every single time a company turns into these stock adjusting, signaling to their shareholders year over year profits, every single time they ruin the product. Every single time. There's zero success stories.
Right.
If you are a fan of something, the moment it becomes publicly traded, go to the next thing. We should have all switched to Pathfinder. Like it like go to the next thing. I've felt gross playing Dungeons and Dragons ever since the OGL thing. And everybody was so like ready to switch to other games. And I 100% was on board with that. And then now nobody's talking about it and everybody's playing D&D again. I just feel like I don't want to anymore. Like this company has ruined it for me. I don't want anything to do with it anymore. Magic is ruined for me. I played Magic since 1994. I've played Magic since 1994. And recently with look, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan. I actually thought Lord of the Rings was a good fit for Magic the Gathering. That seemed like they did that very respectfully. Doctor Who, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I don't want it in Magic the Gathering. And it's an obvious cash grab. You know what I mean? Like all the secret layers. I bought a secret layer. It used to be on camera. It's in my closet now. I've bought secret layers whenever it first started, and it was like this small thing that was like, just sort of this neat. But now there's a secret layer like every 2 months or something. And it's always it's always some IP that they're obviously just trying to like milk as much cash out of people as they can. Like, this is the equivalent of the loot boxes in your MMOs. Like the corporate loot box is milking the wells for all they can. That is the, and you say, well, they know it's ruining the game. They know that the people that have been playing the game forever don't like this stuff. Why do they do it? Well, they do it because it makes $1 billion. Like, the reason why there's a cash shop in World of Warcraft is because it makes $1 billion, and it's, and as long as that's true, they can get on stage and talk about how much they love their fans and love their community. They don't love them more than that $1 billion. Like that's, and it makes sense if you're a publicly traded company, if you're a corporation that has shareholders. I think to some degree, legally, you're obligated to make as much money as possible. So it makes sense. This is what they're designed to do. They're only doing exactly what the scorpion and the frog scenario. We knew that they're a scorpion.
Right. Well, reading over this other article, I was just a few of the titles and things that were as far as people who were let go. You've got game designer Dan Dillon.
That's who I was trying to think of earlier. Dan Dillon.
So he was D&D 5e, like one of their major game designers. He's gone. Another guy, Eaton Bernstein, who contributed to several major physical books. We didn't even
mention that on top of all this, there's a new Dungeons and Dragons coming out next year.
That's what they were saying. They were like, several of the people that wrote catalogs for those, this Bernstein guy, including the upcoming Quest from the Infinite Starcase and Vecna Eve of Evil. He was the editor for those. You've got D&D Digital, the director for D&D Digital. She lost her job, and D&D Beyond producer and host.
The director for D&D Digital. They just spent. Oh my God. It's like all right, I'm going to get the number wrong, but it's over $100 million. I think it's like $160 million. They just purchased D&D Beyond, like, a few years ago. And they just made this huge investment. That's what all of the drama at the beginning of this year was based on, the idea that they were going so hard in the digital that they need to change their open game license. and the director of digital was one of the people they let go.
Right, and then it says Strange Loss is Megan Galbraith Donahue, who directed Magic the Gathering's Universes Beyond. So that she was the head of the creative production team for The Lord of the Rings and for Doctor Who and for the upcoming Fallout, Final Fantasy, and Marvel Cinematic crossovers.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? What? All right, hold on, back up. What did you just say? Are they doing Magic the Gathering, Final Fantasy? What all was that?
It says she was in charge of Universes Beyond, which includes the Lord of the Rings premiere set.
I like the Lord of the Rings thing.
And then
I thought it was a good
Doctor
fit.
Who.
Doctor Who was awful. Why did they ever do that?
And then it says the upcoming Fallout, Final Fantasy VII, and Marvel Cinematic Universe crossover.
Marvel? What? Disney has a card game.
I know, right?
That's dead. Oh my God.
Director of game design, Mike Mearls. Also, he was the co-leader of the team that created D&D 5e. Let go.
Other than the fact that every player has dark vision, I like D&D 5e, but it's just, man, Hasbro is. I just don't want to support. Here's the weird thing: it needs to be a separate company. WotC needs to get purchased by somebody else. I want to support Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want to support Hasbro. You know, I don't want to give Hasbro another dime other than when I buy Play-Doh for my kid. But I don't want D&D to suffer because of it. You know, I'm a subscriber to D&D Beyond.
Yeah,
like it's. I don't know. I'm so torn by this situation, but
so every time you get paid, go to like Fidelity app and buy a little bit of Hasbro stock until eventually you buy the majority, and then you.
Oh my God! Okay, yeah.
It might take a while.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about the situation other than it sucks, and these are real people. That lost their job, and this is a real guy that took $9.5 million in compensation for the same year that he did that to 2,000 people. And that's just gross. I don't know what else to say other than it's just gross. And I'm sorry to all those people. And it really makes me appreciate publishers that are on a smaller scale, like Pathfinder. And there's a ton of others. Pathfinder's the direct, like that's the direct competitor. They weren't always competitors. There was a time period where they weren't competitors. But now they absolutely are. I mean, I don't know. I want to finish our Icewind Dale game, and then we need to convert our Dungeons of the Mad Mage to Pathfinder or something.